Entertainment is amazing. It's honestly one of the best things humans have ever come up with. And it's such a broad category of things. You've got art, books, gaming, video, and music. These are what makes entertainment such an amazing thing. The amount of creativity in all of these is just so mind-boggling. One of my favorite things in the entire industry is the stories that can be found. These stories are able to create a world and vibe that you can literally just throw yourself into and be immersed in. And a good story can teach you something. One taught me something life-changing. It's called Cowboy Bebop. If you haven't watched Cowboy Bebop yet, then what the f are you doing? Go watch it right now. I put the spoiler warning there for a reason. If you ignore it, then you'll honestly regret it. Cowboy Bebop is an anime directed by the GOAT, Shinichiro Watanabe. It's a space western, the best space western, and it has immaculate vibes. It's got a western and a noir style, with a jazz soundtrack, an unstoppable combo. Cowboy Bebop takes place in 2071. After humans colonize the solar system, and both Earth and the Moon are destroyed because of a hyperspace gate getting blown up. If you can't tell already, I fucking love this show. It can literally be seen in my name. We follow a few bounty hunters try to be able to afford food half the time, but that's not really what the show's about. If you know anything about Cowboy Bebop, you know it's actually about the past and what you choose to do with it. If you didn't know that, then listen to the spoiler warning and go watch the show already. To understand this though, we need to take a look at the characters. Cowboy Bebop's characters are so fucking good, man. Look at Jet, he's the owner of the Bebop, and just like every other character, he has a backstory. Jet worked as a cop in the Intersolar Space Police. After he was set up, he quit the force and became a bounty hunter. Spike was a member of the Red Dragon Syndicate. He decided to fake his death to leave. Eventually, he became a bounty hunter and met Jet. Faye was cryogenically frozen, then thawed out, making her the best looking grandma. She got a fuck ton of debt dumped onto her, then she decided to find ways to pay it off. In the show, we see her meet up with Jet and Spike and become a member of the Bebop. I don't know if she was a bounty hunter before joining the Bebop though. Then you have Edward. She's a hacker that was on Earth, and she forces herself onto the Bebop. And finally you have Ein. He's the smartest dog in the universe. That's all. Now I basically said nothing and dumbed their stories down to the most basic forms. And that's for a reason. I want to have anything to talk about for the story, since it's about their backstories and how they deal with them. Cowboy Bebop is an episodic series, so the story is divided throughout the entire show. All the episodes fit within the message of the show though. The first person to fully deal with their past that isn't a side character is Jet. We first see him confront the past in Ganymede Elegy. We see him meet back up with Elisa, his old girlfriend. Elisa and Jet were together when he lived on Ganymede and still worked as a cop. At some point, she left him out of nowhere with a pocket watch and a letter. Jet promised himself that he'd wait for her until the watch stopped working. She obviously didn't come back. Fast forward to the present, and Jet still carries that watch with him, while Elisa has a new boyfriend. We learn the reason why she left was because she felt like she had no control in the relationship, and wasn't able to make decisions for herself, even if they were bad ones. In the end, Jet decides to move on too, tossing out the watch she gave him since there's no attachment to it anymore. The other episode where Jet confronts his past is called Black Dog Serenade. This is the episode where we learn what happened to Jet's arm, and why he quit the force. Jet's arm was shot off in a setup while he was going after a syndicate member named Udai. Shortly after this, he quit the ISSP both because of his arm and the corruption he found out about. Fad, his partner when he was a cop, contacts him about Udai's escape from prison, and to partner up again to stop him. What we find out about later is that Fad was the one that set up Jet, and he's the one that shot his arm off. It's clear he regretted doing this, since during this team-up, Fat only puts one bullet in his revolver, shoots Udai, then shoots Jet with nothing in the chamber, obviously getting shot in the process. Jet leaves limping, knowing more about one of the biggest events in his life. Faye deals with her past first in My Funny Valentine. Faye tells Ayn about her past after she was taken out of cryogenic sleep. She was loaded up with a ton of debt, and a lawyer named Whitney Haggis Matsumoto was there to help out with it. Over some time, she fell in love with Whitney, but he died like right after. He put her in his will though, where he dumped all of his debts onto her. She got scammed by everyone involved. Back to the present, Jet brings in a bounty and Faye immediately recognizes him. Whitney faked his death, got a fat implant, and got a bounty put on him for conning women. Dude immediately starts his shit again, and it works on Faye, up until the doctor and nurse that helped scam her show up to pick up Whitney. Whitney cannot help but lie, so much that he told Faye the doctor was dead. He's clearly not. Then he slipped up and called him his uncle. Dude's just a pathological liar. Faye turns that fucker in and moves on with her life. Only problem is that she still has amnesia. In Speak Like a Child, Faye gets sent a tape that she made when she was a kid, which makes her get a lot more curious about her past. In Hard Luck Woman, we see she even analyzes the location. Ed helps her find the location, where she meets one of her friends before she was cryogenically frozen. Shortly after this, she finally remembers her past. Faye was in a space shuttle accident and cryogenically frozen. She goes off to go back to her old home, just to see that it's completely destroyed. After realizing she has nowhere to go back to, she goes back to the Bebop. Ed deals with her past in the same episode. Before she joined the Bebop, her dad forgot about her and she kinda just wandered around until she found a small orphanage. She stayed there for a bit, then left to wander around again. Back to the present, she goes back to the orphanage while on her way to show Faye the location of the video. We find out her dad came there looking for her and left a picture of himself. She uses that to place a fake bounty on him to get Spike and Jet to find him, so she can meet him again. They get their asses kicked by Ed's dad, and then he leaves Ed again to continue his work. After listening to some advice from Faye, Ed and Ayn leave the Bebop to go after her dad. Spike is the last to completely deal with his past, even though his past is the one we learn about first. In Ballad of Fallen Angels, we have our first run-in with Vicious, Spike's partner in the Syndicate. We learn about Julia and see glimpses of Spike's past. Nothing actually progresses since Spike and Vicious both fail at killing each other. In Jupiter Jazz, Vicious uses Julia's name for a drug deal, and like last time, nothing gets resolved. In the Real Folk Blues, we finally see shit happen. Spike finally meets Julia again, and he finds out why she never ran away with him. Vicious gave her the ultimatum of either she kills Spike or he kills them both, so she just decided to go into hiding. Vicious overthrows the Syndicate and Julia gets killed by them. Spike goes after Vicious and they have one last fight. Spike beats him, then goes down after. We don't get a clear answer on if he dies or not. It's up for interpretation, but I think he does. And the reason I think that has to do with the message Cowboy Bebop is trying to tell you. But first, we gotta talk about the music, cause holy fuck is it good. I fucking love the music in this show. It's unavoidable to talk about the show without bringing up Tank, one of the most iconic intro songs to ever exist. I remember knowing it as a kid before I even knew about Cowboy Bebop. That's how iconic it is. And you know we gotta talk about Rush. That shit is so good, goddamn! Then you have its more chill version, New York Rush. Cats on Mars, Call Me, Adieu, and Wo Kui Non Coin are all certified bangers. Yoko Kanno and the Seatbelts are goats for making a soundtrack this good. It cannot be understated how much they cooked with Cowboy Bebop's music. Alright, time for some overanalyzed yapping. Cowboy Bebop is trying to tell you to confront your past and move on from it. And in extension to that, do it in the right way. The reason I believe Spike did die is because he couldn't let go of his past. You watch him lose all reason and go after any hint of Julia, even if it could be a completely different person. Jet even says it's a common name, and Spike even finds someone people thought was named Julia, but it clearly isn't Julia. Spike gives the advice to move on, but doesn't do it himself. He clearly acknowledges his hypocrisy by talking about his eyes. His left eye sees the past, and his right sees the present. We actually see this symbolism a lot in the show. Whenever we see flashbacks of Spike's past, we also see his left eye. After he kills Vicious, his left eye is closed and his right eye is focused on, showing that he's finally able to move on. But it was too late. His past already caught up with him. A lot of people find out that living in the past instead of confronting it, or confronting it in the worst way possible, leads to the worst outcomes. Fad was someone who lived with the regret of what he did to Jet, and wanted to make it right. We see he's trying to move on with him quitting smoking, but ends up smoking by the end of the episode, symbolizing to me at least, that he couldn't actually let go. His plan was even set up for his death, killing both people who wronged Jet in the worst way possible. Dude couldn't live with himself with what he did, and who can blame him? Shooting your friend's arm off and being a corrupt cop isn't something you can really apologize for and it just be fixed like that. He could've just went to therapy and paid for Jet to get a new arm or something, but the way he did it too works, I guess. Vicious was also someone who lived in the past. Because he's just fucking evil, he planned to kill everyone involved in it, and it almost kills him multiple times. He finally gets taken out by Spike, a major player in his past. Call that poetic justice. Gren is an escaped convict and a veteran of the War on Titan. He was one of Vicious's comrades during the war. After the war, Gren was sent to prison, and Vicious was the person to testify against him, just cause Vicious is fucking evil. This made Gren lose his shit, and he was put on a drug that had the side effect of giving him breasts. After escaping prison, he went to Callisto, and at some point he met Julia, who told him about the bomb Vicious put in the music box he gave to Gren during the war. That motherfucker was just out for him. Gren, still heavily focused on the shit Vicious did to him, set up a drug deal with him and ended up with Vicious killing him. But Gren also used the music box against Vicious. Call that more poetic justice. Asimov was addicted to Bloody Eye, so much that he stole a fuck ton from the syndicate he was a part of just so he could sell it and keep doing it. He wrapped his wife into it and they both end up dead. Wouldn't have happened if he quit his addiction. The Mad Puro ends up the same way and he's haunted by his past. We see this every time he sees a cat, because that's all he saw when he was being experimented on. One became immortal somehow because of the Hypergate explosion. To keep people from finding out about his past, he'd paralyze men to play the role of his father, while he was looking for the one thing that would make him age again. That thing was a piece of the Hypergate that made him immortal in the first place. When he gets it, through the most unconventional way possible, by that I mean Spike fucking shot him in the head with it, he rapidly ages and shrivels up like a raisin and dies. Wen's okay with it though. He's finally released from being physically stuck in the past. Vincent was also a veteran of the War on Titan. During this, he was experimented on. Vincent forgot why life was worth living and focused on the worst parts about it. So he became a terrorist and used the same shit that was used on him against an entire city. Right before he was about to die, he remembered what made life worth living in the first place. But like usual, the past story caught up to him. We see kind of the opposite of this with Jet and Faye. Jet learns to let go of Elisa and is able to move on in a healthy way. With the situation with Fad, he learns more about it, why it happened the way it did. And even though he didn't have a lot of choice in what happened with that, he still knows he has to move on. I feel like him limping away is symbolism for how he feels. Because how wouldn't finding out your good friend did that to you, and the only thing you can do is walk away from it? Faye realizes her past love was just a shit person, and realized her past has nothing to do with her life in the present, allowing her to move on from both. Both Jet and Faye could have instead sat and rot dwelling on the past, but they did the healthy thing and kept moving. Ed is a different story from everyone, and the opposite of Spike. Her entire backstory and resolution to finding out about it is all in one episode. That's also a part of Faye's episode about her past, whereas Spike's is everywhere throughout the show. Ed doesn't really care about basically anything. She's just vibing. There's an episode that shows this perfectly. It's called Toys in the Attic. In the episode, everyone gets attacked by a goop monster, made by a moldy fridge, and the only person that is unharmed is Ed. The reason is because Ed doesn't give a fuck about the past. The problem was made because Spike forgot about a lobster he hid in the fridge, so a problem from the past. So it makes sense for Ed to be the only one unharmed from it, and even taking out the threat, by eating it. Realest thing to ever do. We have other people that were able to move on from their past. VT hates bounty hunters because her husband was one, and being one killed him. Towards the end of the episode, she seems to not hate Spike anymore, so I'd call that progress to moving on. Chessmaster Hex was an engineer for the hyperspace gates. His employers screwed him over by firing him, all because he wanted to fix the defects. He set up this elaborate plan to get back at them, that would go into motion a long time after they were built. By the time the plan happened, Hex was an old man that got dementia. He forgot about what the company did to him and just wanted to chill out with hippies and play chess. Ed's dad, while not being the best person, is still a part of this. He maps out Earth's terrain, even though it's constantly changing. He doesn't care about that though. He still does it and is happy about doing it. "You're gonna carry that weight," is the last words the show gives you. It tells you your past will be with you. It's up to you how you deal with it. In the show, it's clear to see that if you let your past consume you, or deal with it in a poor way, it's gonna end up badly. Cowboy Bebop is just that show. It's got an amazing aesthetic, it's got a banger soundtrack, it's got well-written characters, and it's got a great message. What's not to love? Cowboy Bebop taught me to move on from my past. I could either loathe everything or heal. I think so many people need to hear this. Confront the past, don't let it consume you, and definitely don't do it in a horrible way like so many others. Because if you do, it just might kill you. Bang.